Hey guys, this is Frank Lima, and this is my RepRap Prusa i3 box frame using 0.9 degree stepper motors, Azteeg X3 controller, E3D online all metal hot end, and with Chinese linear bearings and hotbed and whatnot. So this is a video to hopefully enlighten you on some of the issues that I ran into and found solutions for, such that you won't have to deal with them the same way that I did. Let's first start with the stepper motors. The stepper motors have to be driven at a very particular amperage in order to work. The more you microstep them, so the higher the number on the bottom of the fraction, the more amperage is required to drive them. I am stepping 0.9 degree motors at 1/32 of a step. That means that I need to pump a ton of amperage through them. The result was that I was overheating the stepper drivers, and they were shutting down, so I was losing steps on my 3D prints. That resulted in parts like this guy right here, where you can see that it thinks that this edge right here is the border, when in fact it's over here. I'm sure I've got other examples down here, but I can't find them. Here we are. This piece right here, the hairs are starting to fall off, but it printed right off the edge as it started losing layers, or losing steps. In particular, the y-axis, what's the big offender. I fixed that by adjusting the potentiometers on the stepper motor controller and adding a fan to actively cool them. So far, I haven't had any lost steps. The problem I ran into after that was layer delamination. This is a print job that I had running overnight, and you can see the wonderful mess that turned into. You can see right here that the layers are just completely poorly fused with each other. After doing some reading online, I concluded that my problem was that I hadn't actually calibrated my extruder, which, dumb on me, but oh well. I then went to calibrate my extruder using my calipers, measuring out 120 millimeters, running it for 100 millimeters, and then seeing if it was any more or less than 120. More or less than 20 millimeters remaining, sticking out of the top of the extruder. Well, I found the correct number of steps. I entered the correct number of steps into Marlin, and that resulted in tons and tons of problems. The hobbed bolt was stripping out the plastic filament. Here's an example of what that was like. You can see the little bite marks, effectively, that the hobbed bolt was ripping out of the plastic and therefore stalling and no longer able to extrude the plastic. This was due to too high a feed rate for my hot end and my extruder. I did not know this. I beat my head against a wall for a few hours figuring this out. Adjust the feed rate. Start it at 1 millimeter per second and work your way up. I am currently running at, I believe, 2 millimeters per second, which is probably slower than it needs to be, but right now, reliability is far more important than speed. I hope that you don't have to go through the amount of frustration that I have had to go through with this printer. Getting it calibrated and getting it to print consistently has been unbelievably frustrating. In order to get the ABS to stick to the bed, super glue, thin layer, it's magic. If you're losing steps, adjust the potentiometer. If you are having layer delamination issues, check to make sure that your extruder is extruding the right amount of material. Make sure that your extruder is extruding the material hot enough. I'm currently extruding ABS at 230. I have no idea if that's too hot, not hot enough. That's just what's so far working. Honestly, ask on the IRC, get people's advice. But as far as I can tell, there's no good documentation on what works on that front in particular. Make sure that your feed rate is set low enough such that you are not stripping out your plastic filament, because that will be a pain in the ass to fix. Particularly if you have the traditional Wade's extruder that you have to pretty much take apart to get to. That's why I'm printing a new extruder. It is the Wade's version 3 accessible extruder found on Thingiverse. So hopefully this guy will be compatible enough with my printer. I'm kind of worried that it won't be because it doesn't seem to have enough holes. But whatever. To be useful and hopefully a bit more reliable than my current Wade's extruder. Though, honestly, it may be redundant, as in order to print this Wade's extruder, I had to get my Wade's extruder to actually work. So, yay! I sound really resentful, but to be entirely honest, I think that this has been one of the most interesting learning experiences I've had in a long time. It's been a lot of fun. Really frustrating, but a lot of fun. So, if you're considering as to whether or not to build or buy a 3D printer, I'd recommend building one with one caveat. You need a lot of time. If you need a 3D printer next week, buy it. If you need a 3D printer 3 months from now, build it. Best of luck. See you guys.